Let me ask you a difficult question. What would you do if your son called tonight and asked to borrow $50,000? Or your daughter, or your brother, or your parents, or maybe even your best friend? Because eventually, many successful families find themselves becoming something they never planned on becoming. It's what I call the family bank. And here's the problem. The money usually isn't what creates the conflict. It's really the expectations do. Over the years, we've watched families navigate this conversation countless times. Sometimes it strengthens relationships. I think sometimes it permanently damages them. Not because someone asked for help, but because nobody ever defined what helping actually meant. Money has a funny way of exposing conversations that should have happened long before the money was ever requested. Today's conversation isn't about whether you should help family. It's about how to help without accidentally hurting the relationship you're trying to protect. Let's start with something a little uncomfortable. Many family loans aren't actually loans. They're gifts that everyone is pretending are loans. Nobody wants to say, I'm giving you this money. Instead, everyone says something like, just pay me back whenever you can. It sounds generous, it sounds flexible, it sounds loving, until whenever finally arrives. And suddenly, one person remembers the conversation very differently than the other. One person thought it was temporary, the other thought there was no real deadline. One person expected monthly payments, the other assumed Thanksgiving dinner counted as progress. Nothing says awkward Thanksgiving like carving the turkey while quietly wondering where your $25,000 went. Here's what I've learned. Before money ever moves, answer this question. Is this a loan? Is it a gift? Or is it something in between? Because unclear expectations create very clear problems. Most families don't avoid this conversation because they don't care. They avoid it because they care too much. Nobody wants to offend someone they love. Nobody wants to make family feel like a business transaction. Nobody wants paperwork. Nobody wants to discuss repayment schedules. Everyone just hopes love will figure it out. And love is wonderful. Love is patient. Love is generous. Love is not a repayment schedule. I've never seen a promissory note that simply says, vibes. The families who navigate this well don't love each other less. They just simply communicate more. They define the expectations. They discuss repayment. They decide whether interest exists or not. They determine what happens if repayment doesn't occur. And perhaps most importantly, they decide how they'll communicate if circumstances change. Money rarely damages families. Avoided conversations do, though. Now, let's make this conversation even more uncomfortable. What happens when you have multiple children? I got 3. One child needs help, another doesn't. One borrowed money, the other never asked. Now what? Because here's something many parents underestimate. Money almost never stays between 2 people. Families notice, children compare, stories get created. Sometimes resentment quietly grows for years because nobody explained the decision. Fair doesn't always mean equal. Life isn't always equal. Needs aren't always equal. But decisions should always be explainable. Nothing spreads faster than family financial information, except maybe who brought store-bought potato salad to Thanksgiving. Secrets create stories. Clarity creates trust. Here's the part I don't want anyone to misunderstand. Sometimes helping financially is exactly the right decisions. Parents help children. Children eventually help parents. Families support one another. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But structure protects relationships. Sometimes that means documenting a loan. Sometimes it means calling it exactly what it is, a gift. Sometimes it means helping with a down payment instead of paying off credit cards. Sometimes it means helping with education instead of lifestyle. And sometimes The greatest financial gift isn't money at all. It's teaching someone how to become financially independent. Financial independence is slightly more valuable than becoming everyone's favorite ATM. Before saying yes, ask yourself, what problem are we actually trying to solve? Will this money solve the problem or simply delay it? Support people. Don't accidentally create dependence. If your family ever faces this conversation, don't begin with the money. Begin with the relationship. Talk about expectations. Talk about fairness. Talk about communication. Talk about what success actually looks like. Because here's what we've learned after years of working with successful families. Money comes and goes. Families are much harder to replace. The goal isn't simply to preserve wealth. It's to preserve the relationships that wealth is supposed to support. So if you ever become the family bank, remember this. Protect the relationship first. The money should support the family. The family should never become a casualty of the money. Money is replaceable, family isn't. If you enjoy conversations about family wealth, financial planning, business ownership, and the decisions that shape generations, not just portfolios, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you soon.